I'm standing at the centre of a forgotten empire. 1,000 years ago, the Isle of Man ruled the Irish Sea. The Viking Kings controlled a superpower that stretched all the way to the islands of Scotland. But we're starting here in the House of Manannan because some of the most sacred artefacts of the forgotten empire are here just for a few more days. Now this is a prized possession because these are the rarest treasures of the Isle of Man forgotten empire, which was given by the National Museum of England and will be returned in 2 weeks. So we're quite lucky to see it, really. 1,000 years ago, the sea was the Isle of Man's most important motorway. You could get to England, Ireland, Scotland and Wales in a single day. And here we are then in this Viking house with a lovely Viking family. Creepy. The Vikings didn't just stumble onto the Isle of Man. They recognised that anyone who controlled the Isle of Man would control the vital sea lanes of Northern Europe. And now, I've got something else I want to show you. This is a traditional Viking dinner. It looks quite nice for the 800 AD, doesn't it? And this is a pig's... Is it a pig's hip or a pig's thigh? I don't know, but it's disgusting anyway. Ugh. After leaving the pig's thigh to itself, we explored further in the museum to uncover more Viking history. The Vikings didn't just come over here for a day or two. This wasn't a day trip. This was a full settlement. They seen the potential and they stayed. The raids were just beginning. It was not just a grab for gold, it was for territory too. Oh no! Alright, knees. We often hear about the Viking raids, but the reality is it was a lot more serious, as after decades the Vikings would establish an empire that would last for over 300 years. This was about a maritime empire that stretched to the Hebrides in Scotland with the Isle of Man as its centre. When the Kingdom of Mann was at its peak, the King of Mann was one of the most powerful rulers in the northern world. One of the most valuable things the Vikings brought to the island was a new type of sheep, known today as Lockton. He's not doing so well, he's fell down, so we put him back up. So this is the model of a Viking longship, but I think we've got a bigger one. If you want to understand how a few thousand people from Scandinavia dominated the world 1,000 years ago, and you're looking at this right now, this is a massive piece of naval engineering. This hull allowed the Vikings to sail across the Atlantic, giving them an advantage that their rivals couldn't beat. Now this is the Gokstad ship, and if you think that the last time this was sailed was 1,000 years ago, then you're wrong. Maybe 100 years ago? No. 50 years ago? No. 46 years ago. 1979. 1979, this ship was sailed from Norway here to Peel in the Isle of Man. Why did we do it? To celebrate 1,000 years of Tynwald. Nutters. Now this was the engine of the Forgotten Empire. Without these ships, it wouldn't exist at all. This ship brought the gold, the laws, the families that built the ruins that we see across the island. The Vikings didn't just sail into history, they carved their way into it. And as we leave these walls, we're going to see the physical footprints left on the hills of Man. Well, we weren't leaving these walls just yet, as me and cameraman Oscar's direction skills were about as good as a lost tourist looking for the gift shop. I hope it goes left. We're lost. We are lost. Oh Christ, well, it's not there, is it? F***ing hell. That's a joke. Right, I think we're on the right way. So, we're standing in the shadow of what was once the most important site of the Irish Sea. The Vikings converted this island into a massive naval stronghold, and it's not by accident that the Norse built this, because over there they've got a 360-degree angle to the horizon. Behind me is Tynwald Hill. 1,000-year history of this place. The Vikings created it. It's where the laws are made and changed. People of the Isle of Man with the government gather here to discuss. True Manxman, we get it done. Our next spot here is the Braaid. It has some of the most historical monuments from the Lost Empire. Let's go have a look. The people who lived in the Braaid neighbourhood were rich, upper class you could say. They were farmers and tradesmen. And those rich farmers and tradesmen clearly decided that the Isle of Man was their home, as they built 2 longhouses next to a big Celtic roundhouse. As we left the Braaid, we encountered another kerfuffle on departure, but this time
It was to do with private land.
Hey, right, bit of a I really shouldn't be in this field, but we just need to get out. Oh, my f***ing trousers are falling out. Oh, save me. Please don't release your balls. Where? What's coming? The farmer, no he's not. Houses.
After avoiding arrest, we arrived at our final destination.
Right, so we spent the last few days exploring the remains of a lost empire here on the Isle of Man. Final venture, the Manx Museum. Let's go in. Right now, so as we discussed in Peel Castle, they use their might as power, but this is another type of way that they use their power back in the Lost Empire. Look at this, these coins over here, 1,000 years old. Right, and what's interesting about these coins is that this was buried under Manx soil. The Vikings went off to war and in terror, they hid all this under the soil, thinking that they'd come back for it. Oh no, that did not happen. They never did come back for it, and this was found in a small stone box 50 years ago, apparently. Now, these Vikings were using wealth as their might. They were splashing the cash, but these Vikings were using weapons. And he definitely hasn't had shampoo and conditioner, I can tell you that. Now, this Viking sword was buried along with its treasure. It's called the Roaming Viking Sword. It's just an example of one of the absolutely massive weapons here in the Manx Museum. So this sword was actually made of iron and it was buried centuries ago, but due to modern technology, we've got a little example of what those swords may have looked like. And now this is a gravestone of the last Manx Viking king. He's not actually in there, it's just the grave cover. So bearing the design of a sword, this is the grave cover of Magnus. He was the last king of the Viking dynasty. So Magnus died in 1216, he died in Castle Rushen and was buried at the Rushen Abbey. Now this woman was nicknamed the Pagan Lady. She died aged 40, buried in Peel Castle, and what's most interesting about her are those little beads around her neck, because they were shown to be from the Middle East and the Baltics, and that shows just how far and wide the Lost Empire stretched. The skeleton of a woman, killed by a blow which sliced away part of her skull, was buried in the upper part of the mound. A contemporary eyewitness account suggests that human sacrifice sometimes accompanied pagan Viking burials, and she may have been sacrificed to act as a companion during the afterlife. So some Vikings were buried with their possessions, and specifically, they were buried in their ships. I mean, what a way to go, buried in the ships. And what a Manx name that is for a place. Balladul. It's blowing a hoolie at Balladul, boy. I travelled up and down the island to discover an empire that is now considered forgotten. But we found it in the House of Manannan and Tynwald Hill, and in the stone houses of the Braaid, and in the treasure of the Manx Museum. We started this journey looking for a forgotten empire, but standing here, surrounded by the wealth and the weapons of the men of the north, I've realised something. This empire isn't forgotten at all. You can see it in the stone crosses at our churches. You can hear it in the names of our hills and our towns. You can feel it every time our parliament meets at Tynwald. The Vikings didn't just leave a footprint on this island, they built the foundation of everything we are today. The silver is back in the vault, the stories are back in the light, and the empire is exactly where it's always been. It's right here, it's us. I'm Conor Tosh, thanks for watching.